Recording in progress.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Broken Brain. It's me, Dwight, with you again for another week's dose of health and mental wellness and all kinds of good stuff. And good stuff is coming for sure. I've got Dr. David McMillan joining me today. He's a clinical psychologist and author, and I'm super intrigued to hear some of the things that you're going to share with us today. You are such a well-known and also been providing lots of different insights and things into relationships, the sense of community. You've got wonderful theories about community that I'm looking forward to sharing with people, and also how the field of quantum physics can also teach us things that relate back to relationships and community. And I'm just very excited for you to be able to share these things with people today. So Dr. McMillan, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Dwight. I'm glad to be with you.
What can you tell everybody a little bit of an introduction to yourself and how you got mixed up in this this dirty business of mental health?
Well, most psychologists are nuts, and so I'm one of them. And I've always been intrigued to learn more about myself and to try to learn how to love people better and be easier to love. And I'm not finished. I got a lot of work to do. So, but I've enjoyed the journey I've been on. I'm certainly grateful that this profession and I began to dance together, because I think I've really benefited from it.
I like that right up front you put it that way. How did you put it? To love people better and to be loved?
Yeah, to be easier to love.
Easier to love. There we go. Yeah, that's a great, I don't know, it's a great building block right away for psychology, I would say, especially when it comes to interpersonal relationships with people, right? It's a pretty good summary.
Mm-hmm.
What that is. Yeah. You've been, what do you work with specialty? You work out of Tennessee, am I right?
Nashville. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had seen that on your site when we were getting everything all kind of scheduled back and forth and things. And
I've been married. My best thing is I've been married for 38 years to a retired circuit court judge. And she's done a lot of work in reforming the judicial system in Tennessee, and I'm so proud of her. And I'm so lucky to have her as my wife. She's put up with a lot.
It's does that the focus of your work is a lot on relationships, both with community as well with just romantic and personal relationships, right?
Yeah, the glue that connects people in community psychology is called sense of community, but in social psychology it's called group cohesiveness. But in the generic world, it's just called love. So my definition of sense of community is just another definition of love.
That kind of gets lost sometimes in the study, would you say?
Yeah. Everybody wants to have a unique way of talking about something, but there's so much overlap. It's all the same.
How would you break down the concept of love? How do you define that as it applies into?
Oh, good. Well, I got that down. Yeah, I've been working on it for 30 years. Okay, so here it is. So there are 4 elements to love. One is the spirit, or belonging, or boundaries. You're either in or out. You either belong or you don't. The purpose of the first level is to protect intimacy and to protect the truth, because you don't have intimacy unless you can tell the truth. And so you have to be safe. You have to belong. You have to feel at home there. And that's the first element is what I call spirit, or what did I call it in the more academic? Anyway, it's belonging and boundaries. Second element is about power or influence. You got to be able to be influenced. The community has to be able to say, hey, we need you to do this, and you need to be able to respond, or you can't be a member. You got to pay your dues. You got to pay your taxes. You got to obey the laws. This is the government. Well, the first part is the religious or spiritual part of community or love. The second element is the power, influence, government part. And it's why you drive on the right side of the road. It's how you learn to dance. It's the best relationships are one in which you allow other people to influence you and they allow you to influence them. So there's a circular movement of power, and you have power and you empower others. And the more you empower others, the more power you get back.
So that's an important key, because in a community sense, there's a power differential, meaning that the greater community has to make laws. When you're interpersonal, like in a marriage or in a relationship with a partner, I love the way you just described that too, which is just if you're trying to actively empower the other person, then you both have more. If you're both doing that, you have more power being used appropriately.
Yes, because
right?
think about money.
Trying to take it doesn't work.
Think about money. When you get afraid and the world becomes afraid, the money stops flowing as fast and you have a depression. When the world begins to trust again, the money starts flowing. That was my wife. The money starts flowing.
Welcome to the show. She's a special guest. Anyways.
The money starts flowing more freely and you expand and there's more wealth. So trust creates more emotional wealth and more exchange of energy and more vitality. So that's the first was membership, the second's trust, or the first is religion and the second is government. The third is the economy or trade or reinforcement. You don't stay in a relationship unless the relationship has something of value for you, and they don't want you to stay unless you have something of value for them. So you must have a trade, an exchange, something you have, they don't. This is you got a line, I got a pole. This is the essence of mating and sexuality, generically speaking, categorically speaking. They have something that you don't, and the two of you together can make a baby, and wealth builds because of the trade. So that's the third thing, is trade. Then the fourth thing is art, and that's the publishing of the story. That's the telling of the narrative. So when you first met, and the art builds into symbols and traditions and rituals. So then the rituals and symbols become like my wedding ring, and they become a boundary. And that starts us over again. And we have a circle of membership, influence, trade, and art, all influencing each other.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting as you're talking about that, especially that last one with the art and the ritual, that to me would also be where a lot of the real individuality comes out too, right? Because you're going to find that obviously communities do this, but so do couples and families, where the diversity of different members of those communities or different members of relationships, right, bring out different rituals and different finding things that are meaningful, to the person. I mean, I take for example
it's about history.
Yeah.
Every community, every couple has a history. And it's the honoring of your history is the fourth element. The being sure that you represent the best of your partner. You don't humiliate your partner. It's how you tell the story. It's the publishing of the story, the standing up and saying, I'm proud of being married to my wife because she did all this reform work in the judicial system, and she makes me proud of her. And I love to tell the story about how wonderful that is. And hopefully she's honored by that. So if I honor her in that way, then she feels closer to me. And if she honors me reciprocally, then I feel closer to her. The way the stories told matters, and then the symbols come out of the stories. The art is drawn from the stories. The story is literature in a way, the couple's literature, the communities, the nation's literature. It's the way you depict it. It's the way you get self-esteem from the telling of the story. And it's arguably at least as important as all the other elements.
Oh, it
The
certainly
story.
sounds like it. To me, it sounds like some of the other elements are there for the foundation and the safety, and then maybe it sounds like the fourth element in particular is also one of the reasons why you need all that in order for that to exist, right? For the art to flourish.
Yeah. Right now, you and I are publishing a story, and we're putting it out into the world, telling it, and we're in the fourth element, representing something that we want to tell a story about. And we are creating for you and me a shared valent event, an important dramatic moment that's kind of scary for me because I'm not on this all the time and I don't know how this is going to go. And it's, who knows? If we get through it, we'll have a story.
It's how you put it that way. It's interesting how we have the different levels of kind of communication and connection. And as you mentioned that, this is something good for me too. I mean, I do this quite a bit where I interview people on here, but it's so funny. Just as even today, as I was setting up and I've got like the little call and then I get the little update. Oh, he's entered the call. And there's always that little moment right there. Where it's like, okay, here we go. And it's, as if it was like the very first time. And it is interesting because even though something can be something we've done 100 times or more, it still is the very first time, because this is the first time that David and I have gotten on a call and started to tell our story together. And how safe are we going to feel? And how much are we going to feel the intimacy and safety within the realm of this interaction, right?
And you're the host, and you make me feel welcome and as if I belong, and it creates the bond. That's the first thing. Then you tell me that you want to know what I've got to say, and you're interested in me, so you've given me power. And then we're trading. I'm going to tell you my story, and you're going to give me access to an audience. And then we have a story. All those are the four elements.
And then, of course, it goes from there to hopefully then people hear something and maybe they gain or use it or tell something based off that, or they carry this into their interactions.
That's our shared value, isn't it?
Huh. And I can see where when you're getting into, are you mostly you private practice with clients and things? I know you write books and stuff too.
I write books and I teach at Fisk University.
Okay.
I'm an adjunct faculty member there. I teach one course. Mm-hmm. I teach the psychotherapy course in graduate school. But mostly I'm a private practitioner.
Yeah. So I can see this being. This is the kind of stuff I think that pulls us into the sessions and into the field, right? Those of us that go into doing therapy, as you put it, sure, we're nuts and, we got our own thing going on there that pulls us in. But the story is a great way. I keep going back to that phrase or that term of the art and the story that comes from it. And the interactions that we are having, sometimes it's funny enough, easy to forget that so many interactions we're having of a non-intimate community-based variety are with people. I mean, social media, of course, there's that whole thing where people are, going after each other and all that. But I'm just thinking like walking in the grocery store past a person who maybe I've seen 500 times at this grocery store and I don't know who they are. Maybe they work there. Maybe they just shop around the same time that I do. Mm-hmm. But we go past each other all the time and we don't have any kind of relationship. But if, we would know, oh, that person is here and that's normal. And there's so many people we don't have any like the trust or connectiveness with, but yet in a community sense, we're all very reliant on each other, following some of those rules you mentioned, like stop signs and speed limits and such. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know where I was going with that. I just got excited.
Well, you just noted how this works and how connections happen or don't, and how communities have various levels of intimacy and connections. Some people you see all the time and don't have much connection with. And some person you might even see once and be forever in the memory of them and you.
What are some of the big things people have to kind of keep in mind in order to have that trust and intimacy and closeness to go through these four things, say, in their relationships?
Well, the way you build trust is you really listen and you let people matter to you. You let people matter to you. So their words change you and transform you and shift how you think and feel. And as you do that, they begin to trust that you will take them in, that you will let them be important. And then they begin to trust you back. And then hopefully they do the same for you. But it begins with listening and caring and changing and accepting and being interested and curious. All the things you are. You invite me to your program, and you're curious about me, and you're open to me, and you want me to do well, and you don't want to argue with me and make me a fool. You want to listen to me and make me sound better than I am. So that makes me feel really safe with you. So that's how you build intimacy.
I've often thought that when curiosity enters into a relationship, it's very, very useful, because I feel like curiosity is it's the cure for a lot of things. I find like curiosity is actually the best functional opposite for anger, in my opinion. When I talk to people about communication, I think if you're upset with somebody, I always say, take the question that you want to yell at them and then try to say it real politely without yelling. And it's probably a pretty good question. So if you're having an argument, you think like, you're out of your mind, or what are you, crazy? Don't say that. But if you say something more like, when you say that, I don't understand at all where you're coming from. I would love to know more. Could you explain that to me, please?
Right.
That's probably a pretty good question.
Yes. Curiosity washes you free of your ego, because you really now are confessing you don't know, and you're open, and you're not trying to push your agenda. Influence is not what you're about. You're trying to be open and learn, and your ego has to get out of the way for you to do that. So when you say, I really want to know, tell me more, and you really do mean that, then you don't have an agenda.
That's the key, is the sincerity, because anger will have us ask a question where we think we know the answer. I don't really want to know if you're crazy. I know that you are crazy, right? That's what anger does. Curiosity is about, are you crazy? I don't get it. Am I crazy? Which one of us is more crazy? Let's talk about this. I really want to know. Or we get the crazy out of there and we just want to know what the person's.
Well, the most important thing we can do to be intimate with each other is to be wounded. Wounds and lost and fear and sadness all bring people together. Knowing and being smart and having the right answer, you don't need anybody. So real intimacy requires not knowing and wondering and needing help. And so both of us, you and I, as we started the program, said, your title makes the point. You're talking about a broken brain. Well, you do have one, and I know you have one because I have one too, and it's definitely broken. I'm pretty sure yours is too. Now, our confession that our brains are broken and we need each other, that helps us begin to build intimacy. It's the I'm not crazy, you are. That's dangerous. But I'm crazy. I know I'm crazy. My wife will tell you I'm crazy. And I'm pretty sure you are too. And if you can come to me and come to us in this mess of not being sure about anything and help us figure out a path forward, then maybe we can be a good team.
Such a good point, because there's nothing that kills communication and vulnerability more than somebody thinking they are objectively correct about something. And it can go down to the most by the numbers, logical. I mean, take anybody, and this is stereotypically a guy thing, so I'll throw this out there for all the dads out there. The ones who, if we find ourselves slipping into hey, you left this light on in the downstairs living room on all night. Do you know how much that costs? It's like, well, how much does it cost? And I've met people who have actually calculated, by the way. You could go, there's probably a subreddit for this. You could go calculate, well, this is how much it costs. It's exactly how much it costs. And now tell me that's not an emotionally driven reaction, right? To say, well, it probably cost pennies. right? I mean, and how
Uh,
much is my relationship with my kids worth, and how much is it worth me not to be the angry screaming guy all the time? Not much,
yeah,
because I'm doing it over pennies, right? But
right.
that's emotional. It's not math. It's not that's objectively
No,
the right thing to do necessarily.
no, it's
uh,
yeah,
yeah.
that kind of thing is really about our own insecurities and fears that we're not facing, and we're projecting onto other people and attacking them when it's really we got up on the wrong side of the bed and we want to blame somebody for that, you know?
Yes. Or you get into the values, right? Where let's take that stereotypical, lights on dad thing. What does he really want? He probably wants to provide a safe home for his family, right? He
Oh
probably is
yes,
worried about paying the bills or something that's
all
going on there,
all
right?
anger comes from love. Everybody who's mad is afraid that something they value and hold dear is threatened, and they use their anger to protect that. But it's because they love something that they want to protect that they put put grind their teeth and raise their voice and shake their fist. That all comes because they have a passion for something they really care about. And so if we can remember that as we watch people be angry, we can go, oh, they're scared. Yeah, yeah, they're trying to protect something, and they love people, and that's a good thing. But maybe I can help them instead of be something. Maybe I can figure this out. There's some because I'm don't know what's stirring this all up, but it's something important.
It's hard to get that up to the surface during the heated discussions or the angry times. I've heard that, that thought you say where the root of anger is a passionate emotional response, usually love, especially in a family or in a relationship. It's usually we're trying to, like all the things you just said. How do you see people when they're able to successfully work that into an active discussion? So where we stop just fighting and turn it into, oh, you're angry, what's going on? Or I'm angry, let me try to access what's going on, and actually doing that in the moment. How do you find people succeed in shifting that around? Do you find
Well, I've written a book that has a chapter about that,
Yeah.
and the book is called Emotion Rituals. And what you're talking about is how do you tame your anger? How do you begin by taming your own anger? And anger has a bunch of neurocircuits and it has a bunch of neurohormones, cortisol, and a bunch of other things. And you don't change an emotion biologically telling yourself to change. You don't. Only way you can change emotions is to get some new neurohormones to come into the body. And the only place that comes from is from another emotion. So always below anger is this sadness or sense of inadequacy, unimportant, disregarded, rejected, powerless, unlovable, unfit for human contact, accused, one of these words. And all those words lead to sadness. So if you'll go to the words below the anger, the sadness below the anger, that then dumps another pitcher of neurohormone chemicals into the body. And sadness is always the best one. Sadness will undo anger every time. But you don't want to go deep into depression with your sadness. So you have to ask a question. Am I really that bad? Am I really so inadequate? I feel that way, but is it true? And then you put a floor under your sadness so your sadness doesn't dive down into clinical depression. And you say, no, I'm not perfect, but I'm not, I have these feelings, but they're good parts of me too. So then you go to the other person, and that's when you look at them and you see they're the same as you. They're scared and frightened and feel inadequate and unimportant and powerless and devalued and rejected, just like you. Oh, now you have detached yourself from that bitter struggle, and you can look with some perspective on the scene below, and you can see, oh, we're all the same. Everybody is the same. Everybody's hurt. Everybody's frightened. Everybody's defending themselves. Oh, and then you can have compassion. And in that compassion, it detaches you from your anger. And then if you can come to them and say, hey, I get it. You feel hurt and frightened too. And if they are in a certain kind of mood, which they may not be, then they can talk to you and you can work out something so that nobody has to be hurt. That last step doesn't always happen because aren't always with a partner in this dance who can do it with you. But at least you can get yourself out of your crazy, stupid place, because anger is stupid. Anger only has two options: fight or flight, enemy, friend. That's it. There's no other category. And so you have this binary brain that's, you probably know if you're an expert on the brain, and I'm sure you are, that the mammalian brain only has two parts. You're either a friend or an enemy. It doesn't have a third place for a third, because the mammalian brain has to respond like that to crisis. And the amygdala fires, and when the amygdala fires, you have to go one way or the other, and the brain doesn't have time in the crisis to deliberate and really consider. It has to act. Yeah. So it can't have a lot of options, and it only has two. So when you're angry, you're reduced to two options. That's all you got. You're either for me or against me. That's it.
That's where we see in the modern world too, where it turns into just a shutdown, right? That's where the freeze comes from, right? If we can't fight and we can't flee, then we do shut down, because we're doing one of those internally, where we're fighting or fleeing into ourselves. Yeah.
Freeze is a part of the fear response. So it's the flight response. You either flight or fight, but you can also freeze as a form of flight, just like the rabbit it's so afraid it freezes.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting dynamic that we see play out with relationships a lot, where people, when they're together long enough, oftentimes it's almost like we joke about it and accept this idea of just adversarial feelings will start to set in at some point. And I've often thought how funny it is that we just kind of accept that as a norm or an expectation even, right? And we look at that. Sometimes I think even in celebrating how long people are able to be together, we sometimes like, wow, that's almost impossible. That's the assumption we go to, instead of being like, geez, I hope that's, something that isn't impossible.
Well,
we treat it like it's,
The longer you're together, the more liberties you take and the more familiar you are. And so it can come to the place where you get hurt by the other person's judgment. And the only way not to get hurt is to value having a worthy opponent. Like, I really am glad my wife told me this morning to zip up my pants. I mean, that was a good thing. She's my ally when she does that. So when I'm writing a book right now, and I have an editor that's putting a lot of red ink all over the pages, and it hurts my feelings. It hurts my feelings. I love my words. And I don't like her messing with them, but she's doing that for me, and I need the opposition. So when you and I are talking and you don't understand exactly what I'm saying, if I care about you, I won't let you go on and on and on thinking you know something about what I'm saying when I don't. I'll stop you and correct you, and I'll be your worthy opponent. It's the same thing in government. When Howard Baker was a senator, he and Everett Dirksen talked about being the worthy opposition, and that was their job, to stop the Democrats from doing something stupid and make the process more deliberative and have more ideas, and we all need that. So yes, the longer we're together, the sooner it is that people are going to take liberties with us and say, I don't think that's right. And they're going to disagree with us. And if we are hurt by that and our egos are shallow and not very strong, then we're going to fight them back. But if we say, oh, well, I'm curious about that. help me see that more, because I want to be wrong. Please help me this. Wrong is gold. Wrong is good. Wrong means that I'm learning. Wrong is something I want to be, because I want to keep growing. And if you come in relationships with that spirit, then the contrariness that happens over time in relationships becomes a really good thing, not a bad thing.
Then that goes back into this idea of being afraid versus feeling safe, right? If someone's coming at me with the type of feedback, it's funny, the feedback could be even a lot more heavy if I feel trust and love, and I'll be okay with it. Whereas if it can be a lot more shallow, and if I don't trust the person, I'm not going to take nothing from them.
I'm a therapist who does my best to tell the truth, and I don't coddle my patients or my clients' egos. I don't do it. I tell people what I think and see as I see it, and I get away with saying really mean things because I love my patients. I love my clients. I see them and care about them, and I give them back their best self over and over and over. So by the time that I'm at the place where I'm ready to say something critical, they know I love them, and they accept what I say, and I get away with murder because I've built that therapeutic alliance first.
It's so we don't value or place that understanding the depth of that connection. Sometimes I remember when I worked in a residential mental health treatment for youth. I worked in it was a group home, community-based group home for teen boys, and they were a handful. It was a rough population to work with, let's say. And when we would have new people start out, it was always nice when you had a couple of really strong anchor staff. And so one of the common things we would do, I was in got into the management position there and stuff, and we'd hire people and start training them. And I'd say, okay, who's on shift today? Hey, all right, watch Brian, follow Brian around and see what he does. He's excellent. And so they'd go and so some of these new people, though, they would get stuck in this thing where they kept getting into power struggles with these kids. And oh my gosh, these young boys they knew how to power struggle. They could take one little thing and make it last all night long, if you didn't know how to shut it down. And they
love the drama, and they get you sucked into it.
They would. And the thing was, and I use the name Brian specifically, truthfully, because still a good friend of mine, excellent staff member who just ran the house. It ran like a top when he was there. Everybody just did their stuff, and the kids were usually happier. And so the new people, what I learned I had to tell them was don't just watch Brian, keep watching Brian the whole shift, because when he would come in, he'd be like, hey, you're not supposed to be doing that. Get over it. Hey, you know what? That's against the rules. You're busted for this, and here's these little points and whatever. I won't bore everyone with the minutia of the rules, but he would make sure he was right on top of things, and the kids would shape up. But the reason they shaped up for him was because in his mind, he kept a little tally of, okay, who did I have to bust? I need to touch bases with them before bedtime tonight and make sure we're okay. Hey, you doing it? How was your day at school? All right. And he had a little list in his head of anybody who I have to put them on an extra chore, anybody who have to do this, go over, make sure they're doing okay. Just make sure I also connect with them so they know that I care. That's why that's why I didn't let you get away with that, right? All right, good. Yeah, you're good. You're a good kid now. Get on, doing your extra chore. And so if you only do the first part and you don't build the relationship, right, then the people will be like, oh, I'll be like Brian, I'll just be a hard ass. And it's like, wow, all the kids are yelling and screaming at me all the time. It's like, you didn't take the time to show them that you cared about them.
Yeah.
Like he does, right?
You got to give them some genuine, authentic affirmation that you believe,
right,
and feel and mean. They got to feel energy moving between you and them.
Exactly.
And if that energy's there, it can go lots of different directions.
Exactly. And they sure didn't see the ones that he was connecting with proactively that he didn't bust on, that he's going to have to bust on tomorrow. And so having an ongoing understanding of kind of that, they call it sometimes the process of a relationship instead of just the content of a conversation, right? Mm-hmm. The deeper connectivity that we have with people.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've mentioned a few times the ego, then the feeling of being afraid or threatened is poison to that.
Yeah. Yeah. We begin as a child building an identity and an ego, and we learn to defend our ego. That's necessary. And then as we get older, we see the ego and our defenses become like the immune system attacking some pine pollen when it's not really, it's just pine pollen and it's nothing else. So our defenses to our ego become our enemies, and they push people away. And we have to learn how to get our egos out of the way. That's part of the broken brain. Our brains are designed to develop an ego, and then our ego destroys our relationships. And because it's crazy. And our brains don't have, without some self-awareness and some suspicion of ourselves and some self-criticism, we can really go in terrible places.
Well, and so many times we can look at the relationships around us, or even just the need to interact with people in the community sometimes can feel like a liability to our happiness instead of an asset. Just like even just having to go out and be around people sometimes can be socially taxing, but particularly those who are the closest to us. I think we discount sometimes the resources that are there if we do lean on each other and are vulnerable, like you're saying.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask a little bit about some of I was reading some of your focus on how the areas of physics and quantum physics apply to relationships. Yeah. I'm curious about that.
Well, okay, let's take Newtonian physics, for example. So one is the law of homeostasis, right? So this is what happened with countries. You can see it. Northern Ireland, England. If I hit you, you have to hit back. 5-year-olds do this. Hit me, I hit back. Hit me, I hit back. It's balances. It's balanced, isn't it? So we do these things to balance things. And then there's the law of motion. The thing in motion tends to remain in motion. It's momentum. So our relationship starts doing this tit for tat meanness, and then it gets this mean trajectory that keeps going downhill. And that's the law of motion. These are very immature laws, but they apply to matter, and they apply to relationships the same. Now, knowing these laws are important because, remember the law of motion, if you begin to say, hey, this is really nice that you invited me on this program, and I really appreciate that. And as I'm watching this program, I'm looking in the back behind you, and I see this spook mask. And I think that's so cool. That's really cool. How's that? I haven't seen something like that. Yeah, that's cool. So I tell you that. Then that gets a different reaction from you, in which you say something nice to me. And then I say something nice to you. And we've changed the momentum from the negative to the positive because we know the laws. These are natural laws that are true of matter and everything. They're universal laws. So there are also some physics laws that do exactly the opposite. They feed a more mature person, where the natural laws of Newton feed an immature person. They represent immaturity, really. But the quantum physics laws are like the law of relativity. Depends on what you're looking at. Depends on whose perspective it is. So if you look at it one way, matter is a particle. If you look at it another way, matter is energy and a wave. Depends on your perspective. Now we have to be humble and go, maybe there's another way to look at this. And that then becomes tolerance and respect. And then there's the law of probabilities, which says that you can do an experiment over and over and over and over again. And if you do it enough time, it won't work, even though you get everything right. So you can never be certain. Certainty is not available to us. Mm-hmm. One more time, that forces us to come to each other humble, because we really don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Your knowing is as good as my knowing. Let's work it together and see if we can get some working knowledge, and then see how far that takes us, because it's not going to take us forever. What we know now is not going to be what we know later, because that all changes. And that's the way it is. And that humility allows us to both have space and have the right to be and think and feel. And that's quantum physics. And then there is the law of spin rates. So it matters how fast something is spinning to a proton and whether you can join it or not. And the way you spin something, the way you frame it, makes a difference in how easily it's going to be to connect with that. So this is spinning something is like selling a car. Why do we put a sexy woman beside a car in the 1950s? Well, it was because men bought all the cars, and that was the spin. It's what they spun their narrative, didn't they? And it made it more effective. Well, that's true with people in relationships. Is how you tell the story. The way you tell the story matters. Then there is the law of approach, which is a physics law. Which, if an atom is busted with a neuron, if you come at the atom like this, 90-degree angle, it will do one thing. And if you come at an angle, it will do a different thing. It's like throwing a rock on a pond. It'll skip over the pond depending on the angle of the rock. Well, that angle of approach is the same with humans. If you come at somebody directly and with a fist in the nose, that's an approach. It'll have a certain reaction. But if you come at them obliquely with a little softer, what do you think about? I was thinking about this, and I wonder what you thought about. If you come at that way, it really matters, and you can be much more effective. And then there's the law of entropy, which are Einstein's laws. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, right? Well, if you change the word energy and you make it emotion, then you can't destroy. You can change emotions, but you can't stop it. You can't deny it. You can't repress it. It's still going to be there. So that doesn't work. It can't be created or destroyed. Then there's the idea that, about emotions or waves. Energy comes in waves. It comes in waves. Emotions come in waves. And so they don't stay if you let them process through you. So if you feel a feeling and express it, and it's heard and listened to, then it goes out, and then another feeling comes next. So people who are suicidal believe that they're stuck there when they're not stuck there, because emotions come in waves. If you'll just get somebody who's suicidal and you can keep them alive for 5 more minutes, usually, sometimes a different wave will come through and they'll feel something different, because emotions come in waves.
And it's always the most profound ones that feel like they're going to pull us out to sea. The most profound emotions make us forget that they're going to end at some point. Exactly. And then there's the law of requisite variety, an entropy law, which says that if you're going to combine two matters, two chemicals, it really matters if you have different things to offer that will satisfy you. If you can only do it one way, it won't work. So, for example, if the male only had one spermatozoa to penetrate the egg and swim up the uterine canal, I don't think. But having a variety of options that are all working together, one of them's likely to work. But when you're right and you're sure, and it's your way or the highway, and there's no other answer, you're never going to get there, because the person is going to say, if that's what you want, I'm not giving it to you, because I'm not going to let you have your way. So your one answer is guaranteed to be rejected. So you need to. I love the imagery. You
need to come to a negotiation with the requisite variety so that people and you can be satisfied with all 5 of these options, and you don't care. Any one of them will work. But if you're only one, not going to work. Mm-hmm. Look at the COVID molecule that you see all the time. You see all those little things sticking out? Those are requisite variety options for something to catch on. And so they can, with one of those options grabbing on, the immune system can't get rid of them because they can grab on because they got a requisite variety. So when we start with the answer and it's our answer and it's the one thing, hey, you're doomed. That ain't going to work.
I love the imagery because then we double down on it. Can you imagine somebody being like, yeah, but that one sperm I have, he's great. It's going to be so awesome. I'm really attached to just this one sperm plan. No, but we wouldn't, but we do that all the time. A lot of the things that you're describing, I actually find to be very hopeful concepts because they are concepts that saying like there's a natural law to things. There's a lot of different ways to know that we don't have to be correct in this one thing, and I don't have to just have one approach, and I don't have to, that if I replicate, like take what you said, if we repeat something enough times, it's not going to work the same way, right? Well, that means I can try, because one of the greatest obstacles in relationships of wanting to try to go at it and keep working is, well, we've done this before. We've done this before for so many times. And while that's something to talk about as far as technique, the giving up because I've tried something 100 times and it hasn't worked, just for that one reason, whether it's a relationship, my own mental health, my own, health practices in my life, whatever, usually we have to keep trying to do the healthy thing until it works. And so saying that, I can keep trying it and it's a different situation, and I can find ways to bring differences to it while still having hope that I could succeed in a different way.
Yeah, and maybe listen to somebody else's way and see, maybe think about it. Would that work? Maybe that would work. Hey, I think that would work. And if they get their idea into your head and you say, hey, that will work, then you've got them invested in the idea. And now you've got a really good project and a good team. But if you insist on your way, they'll probably figure out a way to sabotage you.
Well, yeah, there's a flexibility kind of works into this too, then, of not being rigid,
of course.
Not being in a rigid perspective.
And these are all natural, universal laws that apply to science and matter and everything. I got laws of chemistry, laws of biology, all the same. Are more than just relationships, but they also apply in relationships.
Well, and it makes sense too when you see out there in the kind of the greater community, and when we network with other people and we take our kids to the school and activities and just all kinds of things. I think a lot of us out here, we notice that the more kinds of people we interact with and the more connections we have with different backgrounds and different philosophies and different feelings and things, that we all get better, right? Because it kind of goes back to what you're saying is it just, even if it's just as simple as maybe the way I live my life and I like it, but hey, other people do other things, just knowing that actually broadens my perspective and gives me options too.
Yeah. If you can get rid of your ego and not be the hero and let other people be heroes too, and let them feel good about themselves and think that they have ideas, and then the ideas can collaborate and dance together, and nobody takes single ownership, then you're going to be much more effective than if you come in and be the hero and the smart guy and the smartest guy in the room, and everybody's got to do what you say because you know when nobody else does, not like you. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster for Donald Trump. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. We're on the same page. Good. I like it. This has been such a great chance to hear from you. I'll say this is one of those that I've learned a lot, and just reflections that I've been having as we're talking. It's very, very helpful to me personally. So if anybody out there also likes this conversation, good for you guys, but it's not about you. It's about me. No, it's been it's my show, everybody. Come on, but go ahead and benefit if you feel like it. You know, if you feel like benefiting too, you're welcome to. But
yeah,
I've just
that's the broken mind. The show is the broken mind.
There we go. I mean, and so this has been just a great time for me to be able to talk to you and hear what you have. I want to give you a chance to tell people where they can follow your work and learn about you. Before I do that, I always like to ask people if they would share with the audience something that they believe in regards to community give back, whether it's just a good way to give back to your community or whether it's a nonprofit organization or a charity. Just something that you think of when you think of giving back. It doesn't have to be related to our topic, but it can be if it's up to you.
I really love what my wife does on some Saturdays. She goes to a pro bono legal clinic and she gives her time to people who are marginal and don't have enough money and the system is not helping. And I really respect her for that. She does a lot of good.
Yeah, those pro bono legal services, I worked in community mental health for a large part of my career and just saw without those kind of services, I mean, put it this way, the therapists and the social workers weren't going to be much use when it came to filling out, different forms and applications and counters to things and knowing what people's rights were. So having lawyers that were willing to do that, that's huge. So yeah, any of those kinds of services in the community. Thank you for sharing that. That's really great. Tell everybody where do they follow you? Where do they find you out here in these streets?
I have a website, drdavidmcmillan.com. And on my website are a lot of things that I've written. And I'm working on a bot. I'm imagining a bot. I want to create a bot with all the stuff on my website, put it in the bot and have bot talking to people. I think that'd be really fun.
There are more people doing that. I've seen, influencers and different people that do it just kind of for different goofy reasons. And don't get me wrong, I love goofy reasons, but I'm seeing
my reasons will all be goofy. Yeah. I want it to be fun. I want it to be like a psychological game where the people play with me or my bot and it becomes interesting. But it also becomes whimsical. And I believe the job of a therapist is to be an alchemist. And by that, I mean, I think a therapist should take gold and lead and turn it into gold, or misery and turn it into wisdom. And that's alchemy, is taking misery and turning it into wisdom. And that's what I hope I do with the people who consult with me, is I help them do that. To put sunlight on feces.
Well, if for anybody who has, and anyone who has not been in or, has been in a therapy session, at least most of the ones I've been involved in, I guess the majority of the therapy sessions I've been involved in, I was the therapist, but I will also say majority of the therapy sessions that I've been in as a patient as well, there's some laughter along with the tears that you have and things. And how do you take?
If you don't laugh, go to another therapist.
Yeah, exact. That's my thoughts too. There has to be this kind of way of contextualizing and processing the world around you to where it feels safe, and what's safer than being able to say, as I had a colleague who used to say, like, sometimes you're just in so much pain, all you can do is laugh. Right. And so,
it's the irony of it. And the title of your show is funny. It makes fun of yourself and makes fun of us, and that's what therapy should do. We should all be laughing at how silly we are.
Yeah, I like it. I like it very much, and being able to take things that are unsafe and make them safe. By the way, this ties in. It's funny that you're in Nashville. Because I've been for the month of May here. This is when this comes out in May 2024. For any of you listeners in the future, every episode, I'm making sure to plug the YWCA of Nashville and the Greater Tennessee area. I've been starting to just pick some charitable organizations to highlight, and so in the intros and the outros, and right now, for example, I'm just mentioning to everybody out there that we're focused on the YWCA in Nashville. Like many of the YWCAs in the nation, they do a lot for family violence, both shelter and outreach programs. And that's a place where you would be well served to spend a little time looking. If you go to their website, ywcanashville.com, and they have a website there or a link there for people who make donations. But one of the things that people don't always know is that a lot of the family violence shelters, they also have Amazon wish lists. And if you're looking for something that you can do that's going to be affordable and approachable for most budgets, there's items that are $6, $7, $8, $10 on there that you know are going to go right to a place where somebody is going to go right in the hands of someone who needs them really badly. And so that's just a reminder that we're doing each episode is to do that. And so this month we're highlighting that specific program.
It's right down the street. It's about 3 blocks down the street on Woodmont.
Oh, very cool. So yeah.
I know, right where I do. Mm-hmm.
So we're just going to send the stuff to David's house, and then he'll take it 3 blocks down. I got your address here, and if anyone wants to click this link, no.
I'm not very reliable as a message.
We'll have him bring it to you. We'll send stuff for you there then. Thank you again, David. Really appreciate you being here.
Good. I loved it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Court Arts Podcast Network. To listen to more Court Arts shows, visit courtemparts.com.